Hi again, Gwendolyn.
Hello.
Thank you for coming on Plants on Wheels podcast today. I appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much. So tell us what the story is behind the name Dare. Yeah, I'm curious about that, and I feel like a lot of our followers will be as well.
Yeah, it's a fun story. So I grew up in Dare County. My namesake is for that. So my middle name is Dare, Gwendolyn Dare Hageman. And when I was wanting to start, I knew that I wanted to start a vegan cheese company. And I didn't actually know how to make cheese at that point, but I had a friend that I told that I have this idea. And so we sat down and started spitballing names. And honestly, the first one that he wrote down was Dare with umlauts over it. And he said it's pronounced dairy. And so that was like, I just felt it in my soul that that was, the path that I was going to go down. And it was a pun. And I love a good quirky pun. And so it just felt right. But yeah, the name and the logo came before I even knew how to make cheese. So that's a fun tidbit for the company.
Oh, that's outstanding. So it's sort of like the contrarian view, right? Um,
Yeah.
I love that. So what was there a moment in time that you decided that you wanted to make vegan cheese?
Yeah, so that was my sister and I were kind of thinking of doing a business together, and she was thinking, let's do a vegan catering company. But I had been working in Asheville restaurants since 2013, and I knew that something that we didn't have in my particular area was someone doing vegan cheeses. And so instead of going that more broad kind of vegan cuisine, I wanted to niche down and focus specifically on that. And so she and I started experimenting together, using the blender at home and aging cheeses and kind of playing with different mediums. And then the logo came, and we knew we wanted to use cashews. That's still a part of our logo now. Um, and yeah, that's what it came from is knowing that I wanted a business that was going to fill a niche in Asheville and also be something that I knew that was needed in our restaurants because that's what I was working on at the time. I was a untrained chef, but a pretty good chef nonetheless. um yeah, so it was wanting to do something vegan and wanting to make sure I did some one thing very, very well.
Outstanding. And so do you have a background in food or culinary arts, or did you figure it out kind of along the way?
Yeah, I think my dad is a chef. He always said, a lot of my jobs going through school was either working underneath him or, in another restaurant setting. And he always joked, never go to culinary school, just call me. So I'm not classically trained, but I am trained from someone that really knows what they're doing. And I love that. I love to experiment with food. I love to show love through food. And I do have a degree in biology, so I say that I kind of married those two loves of, I love fermentation, science, microbes, all of that stuff really jazzes me. And then, food, sharing love, cooking for others, making something really good that everybody can enjoy, and married those two in the company I do now.
I love that. And what makes vegan cheese so tricky to get right?
It's a lot of things. I would say it depends on what you're going for. I personally wanted to keep it clean ingredients, so not a lot of starches, inflammatory oils, and that in not doing starches, you don't get that kind of stretch pull that you might expect from a dairy cheese if you're making the switch. But for me, the flavor was a lot more important. So instead of focusing on like that end product that you're hoping for, like, I'm making something to make a cheddar at the end. It was kind of thinking back to how do I create a medium in which a culture can add what it needs to add, break down, do all of the cool sciencey stuff to create a texture slash flavor. Of course, like when fermentation happens, it mostly changes the flavor, but it does denature proteins and stuff like that to make it creamier at the same time. So it was more about that flavor forward through using microbes than how do I put these ingredients together and then call it cheese. So that's the more complicated way to do it. I know that there's a lot of companies that don't do it that way because it's harder and it takes longer. And um, I understand, just using the ingredients on hand to make an end product, but I wanted to think of it like cheese making. If I was going to call it cheese, I wanted microbes involved. I wanted to kind of slow down the process and ensure that it was good for me, and it gave back to my body. And so yeah, I think that's where a lot of hang up happens is do you want to hit the flavor or the texture, or you're going to aim for both? And then it's kind of like you're missing on both of them because you're not focusing on one or the other. That's what I've noticed, at least in other brands.
And so can you walk us through the process of how Dare Cheese went from an idea to a finished product?
Yeah, so I was experimenting, and I had multiple jobs at that time. I was working as a server at a restaurant downtown, and I was managing a vegan cafe at Warren Wilson College, which is a liberal arts school near Asheville. And in doing both, I was, when I was making something at home, I would take it to the students that, worked in the cafe, and I'd ask for their feedback. And then I do the same to the people that I worked with at the restaurant. And when I was ready to take it from, had gotten enough good feedback, I felt confident. I was ready to go from my home kitchen to producing in a kitchen that was certified. I asked both my jobs. I asked Warren Wilson, and I asked Chestnut, the restaurant in Asheville. And I got a yes from my restaurant, the owner of the restaurant there. And he said they have this big commissary kitchen downstairs. And, I posed the idea, so when I'm working at night, there's nobody down there. How do you feel about me, trying to start my business down there? And he was over the moon that, he could help another small business kind of get off the ground and give me that first step to bring it to market. And so that's what I did. When I wasn't working at one of my two jobs, I would work downstairs. I would make cheese. And then on the weekends, I would take it to farmers markets. And then I started getting wholesale accounts. And it was me for the first about year and a half. I had a very wonderful best friend that would help out every once in a while at farmers markets and making cheese. And yeah, but that's how it started. Essentially, it was me asking, not being afraid to ask, and not being afraid to step out and be scared all the time. And I remember my first farmers market, somebody came and she was like, I came here specifically for you. I will always remember that feeling, because I was like, what do you mean? Like, I'm so nervous to be here, and like, you came for me. And yeah, so that's how it started, was stepping out
It's
on a limb.
it's sort of like the feeling that I had the first time someone told me, where did you come from? I haven't eaten in 3 days. And,
Mm,
did you come from God? I mean, I was praying that I would have a meal, and, we were giving out meals on a particular day. And one of the people said that to me, and it's always stuck with me since then.
yeah, yeah. I think the universe is always supporting the mission that each of us individually are supposed to be on. I feel that all the time in my business.
Oh, I agree with that 100%. Things that we wished for, ages ago, we're starting to see come to fruition now. And it's like, be careful what you wish for, as they say.
Yeah, yeah, same.
So, what ingredients are you most proud of that you use in your product?
Yeah, so I am so happy to say that cashews is the first ingredient of everything we make. So it's not a starch or an oil, it's whole cashews. And because I am so I will call myself peculiar and a little type A. We use the highest grade cashew that you can get because that's what my culture likes. We've experimented across the board. Cashews grown in different areas. There's different grades of cashews. But because of the way that my culture reacts to whatever it is about, I can't tell you what it is. It's just what my culture tells me. We use the highest grade cashew that exists on the market, and that makes our product more expensive for us to make, but it makes it better. And I have stuck through that, even through scale, is not changing the integrity of our product just because it costs more. And I'm proud that's just how I feel. Like I can't get around that.
Absolutely. And are there any ingredients that you would refuse to put into your product?
Yeah, so the only oil we'll ever use is coconut oil. And we won't, we're gluten-free, soy-free. That's our whole facility is dedicated. It's not certified, but it absolutely is dedicated to having no allergens outside of tree nuts inside of the facility. And so even when we're currently R&Ding our holiday cheesecakes, and we wanted to use a specific ingredient, and it was really hard to source one that didn't have soy, but we did it because it's the standard that we uphold. And um, I wouldn't add starches just to create my product as a cheaper alternative. There's a use for like the tapioca starch, which we have in our melty cheeses. It's intended to make it melty and kind of more smooth and creamy. But I feel like a lot of other brands do that to make a cheaper product for them, and technically the consumer. Sure, it lands a little bit cheaper on the shelf, but that's something that I just won't do. Cashews will always be number one.
And how does your company approach creating a cheese that satisfies people who grew up on dairy?
Yeah, so that's a challenge because, like I said, you're either hitting flavor and texture and getting that exact, like, oh wow, this is exactly like a whatever type of cheese, or you're doing the best that you can to not necessarily, we don't say that we want to like replicate. We're trying to like flip the script entirely and it be something that I had a meeting earlier today, for example, with people trying our cheese, and they said that they liked it more than dairy. And that is what we're going for. Is it's maybe you won't taste our pepper jack and be like, man, this is exactly like a dairy cheese pepper jack by the way that it feels, or chew mouth feel, whatever it is. But the taste is really important. I think that's the first thing that tricks your brain. And if it tastes really, really good, then you can kind of get through the fact that it doesn't melt the same or it doesn't chew the same, or and then yeah, making sure that microbes are doing that, because that's how dairy cheese is made, and it's not anything that we're adding into it to create this flavor. It's a very intentional and thoughtful process.
I know we've tasted your cheese. It's absolutely amazing, by the way. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Of course. And how do you come up with new flavors? Is it experimentation, inspiration, or customer requests?
I would say all of the above. But I will say that sometimes we make a cheese and then stop making it, and the customers are just so upset with us. And so we haven't done that as much as we used to. But we used to almost have like a different cheese monthly, and that was, for me, that kind of scratched my experimentation itch of being just this culinary creative. It was also a way to test out new flavors, to kind of define what our product line would look like. And so now we have 14 products total. I would say in our R&D book, we have hundreds that we've tried out, whether through it's a request or we are just like, well, that sounds good. Let's try that. One of the most difficult cheeses that took the most iterations and the longest R&D time was our goat cheeses. The Oh My Goat, we call it, is the kind of classic take on a goat cheese. And that one required different cultures. All of our all of our cheeses start with what we call curd, which is the culture, and even our cheesecakes across the board, all 14 products have the same culturing process, but then the goat cheese required more. And we had to play with levels and time aging, and that is the most exciting kind of stuff for me, like trying to replicate a flavor that you can find in dairy cheese that is just using an entirely different medium and different cultures entirely, and getting really dang close, just through time tested, we're going to make this right, let's slow down and do that. So yeah, it's a mixture of all those things, but mostly it makes us excited to create a really good cheese and have this idea in mind, and then try until like we create it.
Outstanding. And is there any flavor that you tried that just didn't, that you felt you couldn't get right and you just kind of let it go?
Yeah, we experimented a couple years ago with doing aged cheeses. And we really wanted to like knock a Gruyere, for example. And Parmesan, we tried to do all of those. Like I talked about the process of trying to figure out a goat cheese, all of those took even longer. And we just kind of decided that we weren't necessarily set up for that type of cheese making at this point, trying to manage our product line and also do aged cheeses that had a totally different process. It's not to say that we won't ever revisit something like a blue cheese or camembert or something like that, but it wasn't sustainable at the scale we were at, and we just had to be humble and recognize that.
Absolutely. Yeah, being in a business will humbling, sure. That's absolutely true.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what is there a next flavor that you're dreaming up, or is that kind of top secret?
Yeah, we have like I said, our holidays is kind of when we play now. So we do a cheese board box that has flavors that you can only get in that. And usually that's when we bring back a flavor that we've heard that people really, really want. And we've had two flavors particularly over the last 2 to 3 years that have been requested over and over again. And we're adding it in the box this year, kind of like a I love you, like we're listening to you, like we can't make it all the time, but we can do it for the holidays, and you can gift it to yourself or somebody else. And same for cheesecakes, we do that seasonally. We have something for Thanksgiving, we have something for Christmas that only kind of happens around that time. As far as new products for our full line, there's nothing really working right now. We launched a couple last year. I want to say we launched with 3 or 4 new flavors last year, and so this year we just kind of put a pause on any of that. And it is a labor of love to create new product, go through the packaging process, do shelf life testing, all of the stuff that comes with creating a new product. So this year is just refining, honing, making everything that we do really well, and then I'll probably make everybody's job a little bit harder next year to come up with something new.
Well, 3 or 4 in a year is a lot, so I
It
give you a lot
is.
of credit for that.
Thank you.
Sure. And what, from your viewpoint, what's been the hardest part of building a vegan cheese brand?
I would say, well, specifically speaking about vegan cheese, I would say it's the preconceived idea of what vegan cheese is. I used to do everything. So I would man the table at the farmer's market. I would do sales to try to get it into new buyers. And it's always like, I'd always be like, do you want to try good vegan cheese? Like, because there's people that have had this really bad experience previously. And things have changed even in the 7 years that we've been in business. The market has just gotten so much better. But previously it was pretty lackluster. And so that has been difficult just from like, the specific type of product that we just convincing somebody to try it has been hard. But then once they do, I get that eyebrow raise and I get that, oh, this is good. And that's one of my favorite moments. But I would say coming from, this is my first business. I definitely didn't have any manufacturing experience. I didn't have any business running experience. I had, ran other people's kitchens and had that management experience. But it is, and I've heard it because I'm in so many different business communities, it is really, really hard to scale a food manufacturing company, especially cold chain, without outside funding. It's usually something that people have an idea, they go out and get investors, and then they make it happen with that kind of business model, which is totally, I would say, I'm not jealous that I did it that way, but I would like to see what it feels like to do it that way. But I also love that I have learned all of this along the way. I have done this sustainably and slowly. I have, 100% ownership of my company still, and we're successful. And it's because I've approached this very intentionally and thoughtfully and made good decisions, kind of really learning about the market that I was going into, because I didn't want to make bad decisions knowing that I didn't have a lot of money to fall back on. And so, yeah, that's both a good and a bad that I've had to experience, is how do I leverage the funding that we do have and, reinvest any profits that we have to continue our growth and make scale up decisions in good time. And that is very specific to manufacturing, but it's been a really fun puzzle to try to solve.
So you've been able to get to the point that you're at right now without any outside funding or investors.
I have no investors. Everything that I have built is through debt financing, so it's loans. And yeah.
And that's outstanding that you were able to hold on to 100% of your company. That I give you a lot of credit for that.
Yeah.
So where do you see your business there in 5 years from now?
Oh, well, I would say this year we're seeing some beautiful momentum with some new retailers that feel sustainable and like a good partnership. So I would love to, and I was saying, I think it was today, I was like, man, I'd really love to be in specific regions in grocery stores so that I know that we have a lot of people, in Florida, in New York, and California, we're in Southern California, but not really in Northern. Like, how can we kind of infiltrate those specific regions to continue to grow, and get the cheese at a store that's a little bit easier for our consumers that already love us to find us. So in 5 years, I would love to be more saturated in what my game plan is now, really executed, and um, yeah, easier to find is the goal.
Yeah, it's fair enough. It does take a lot of work, a considerable amount of work, I'm sure, to get into, big chain stores and restaurants and stuff like that, I assume.
It's a lot of work. It's a long process. There's like review periods, and it also has to make sense financially. There's a lot of expenses that come along with being in large grocery chains, and sometimes it's just not the right timing. So I've either not I've said no to a few expansions because it just didn't make sense financially. But it's a hard decision to have to make, and I know that, hopefully in 5 years that won't be the case.
Outstanding. And what do you want people to feel when they taste their cheese for the first time?
Oh, joy. And like I've always said, like, I just want our cheese to not feel like a compromise. Like, if you're missing dairy, if you're, like, you just really, what you're craving that, and you get to have us, you get to have dairy, um then that's a joy. That's love. It's shared through food. And that experience can't be replicated. That first moment of being like, oh my God, I have missed this, or oh, I just really needed this, or like, it's just like, I that is the one of the joys of my company, is that I get to do that for other people.
And how do you think vegan cheese fits into the bigger picture of a the plant-based movement.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard it a million times. I could never be vegan. I can't give up cheese. And so I was just like, well, what if we make one that's really, really good? Like, what if we did that? Would that still be the excuse, or would that be something that, could you eat our cheese 3 days a week with, and even if you don't go fully vegan, like that kind of creating a choice that feels sustainable and not like a compromise, like I said, and because it is a statement that I hear often, is that, I can't give up cheese, and I'm like, but have you tried ours?
Yeah, and I feel like it's frustrating to try to get carnivores to understand the issues relating to the plant-based movement.
Hmm. Yeah, it's
It's
hard to look at until they're ready to do that.
Yeah, and I feel like even, it's even more astounding to me, that, women won't understand, everyone, but just speaking about women for now, I find it astounding that, when it comes to dairy, milk, stuff like that, you know, they're um, absolutely blind to the animal cruelty that goes into the food that they're eating, which is
Yeah.
amazing to me.
Yeah. Yeah. They've done a terrible but good job of hiding that, I guess, or of, um, it's easier to ignore. But yeah, from like a mother standpoint, I can totally agree with that.
And then I also know, I mean, from what I see, online on TikTok or Instagram or wherever, I've never seen, I mean, those apps are relatively new anyway, right? But I've rarely seen a time where I see so many young people getting sick with incurable, diseases, and not even
Mhm.
understanding that a lot of that sickness comes from their own doing, from the choices that they make.
Yeah, diet is how we fuel our bodies, and so if your body's reacting, it's something that you need to listen to. And I agree. I've developed even more allergies the older I've gotten in life, and it's hard to ignore when you want to be your best self. Is like, how is, gluten doesn't treat me well anymore, and I really had to be like, okay, well then we stop eating that. Like this is how the decision that I have to make for my health and for my well-being. And yeah, I think it's just easy to ignore if you're not attuned.
Exactly. And so many people also will, be like, oh, well, it's hereditary. Diabetes runs in my family. Cancer runs in my family. Heart disease, obesity, it runs in my family. So, of course, naturally, that, the person will say that that's something that I'm going to develop. So, what does it matter what I eat or what I do? Because they feel that they can't do anything to change the her hereditary ailments that they've been told are run in their family.
Right. But what is it, what a defeating idea. There's so many cycles in this life that we could change if we were willing to.
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
July 7th, 7/7, I turned 64. And I know that I don't look it, and I know I don't feel it. And I have two
Mhm.
sons under 2 years old because using your name, I dare to be different, right? So
Yeah.
I'm not living the life that everyone else lives. I'm living my own life. And, I feel like that's the way people should be, but we should be unselfish about it. I used to
Hmm.
love dairy too. And I used to have that same attitude. I could never give up dairy. And I did. And I did it for the right reasons. And, companies like your company are what help to fill in the blanks and to make someone feel like they're not missing out on anything.
Right. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing with me. That's special to me. Like I said, it's my favorite thing about what I do is to make feeling good easier.
Absolutely. And what would you say to someone who's curious about going dairy free, but thinks they could never give up cheese?
Yeah, well, as someone that's done it, it gets easier. And I would say it's just that first step, and integrating it slowly, if that's helpful. And then noticing how you feel. I think that's the easiest way to make the change. Is an all-at-once thing works for some people. If it's slower for you, that's whatever gets you to where you're feeling the best and making the decisions that make you feel the best, is what you should do. But yeah, I would look at the ingredients of what you're eating too. Like a lot of dairy-free cheeses are not made equally, and um, a lot of dairy-free cheeses don't make me feel good, and it's because of the ingredients that they use. So just making the switch is important, but also making the switch mindfully, and ensuring it agrees with your body. And um, but it gets easier. I don't miss cheese. It's
I agree with you.
yeah.
So what's your favorite type of cheese that you love, either vegan or dairy that you used to love?
Yeah, well, I love goat cheese. That's why I so desperately wanted to make a version that, agreed with me and was vegan. And I would say the cheese that I eat the most of our line is our roasted garlic, because I cook with it all the time. It's always something that I can make something with. I do eat our pimento a lot too, though, so it's tough. Like thankfully, I've just got cheese around all the time, so I don't have to pick a favorite.
True. And what's the most underrated cheese pairing?
Mm. Oh, I don't know if this is underrated, but because it's summer, I've been eating a lot of tomato and cheese. And I know that's very classic though, right? Like, marinara and cheese. But I put, our goat cheese last night on a caprese salad. And I did a English muffin this morning with smoked pimento and tomato. So yeah, when I would say fresh vegetables are the most underrated pairing.
Oh, I agree with that. I'm hungry. And so cheese, how about cheese on pizza? Do you think less is more, or you load it up, or something in the middle?
Yeah. Well, the roasted garlic is one of those ones that I use on pizza, and I put it in slices versus the traditional kind of shreds. And so I guess technically in comparison, it would seem like less, but it's still like when you get that bite of cheese, it's satisfying that cheesiness. So no, I mean, I like a lot of vegetables on my pizza, so I don't want one thing to be outweighing the other. And I know kind of traditional American pizzas like cheese, 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 like put cheese in the crust, like cheese everywhere. But yeah, I think again, once you kind of reframe how you're eating, and um, you don't you don't need that cheesy, cheesy cheesiness when you're having a slice of pizza.
I agree. And what's a cheese myth that you would like to bust?
Oh, well, that you can call something cheese without putting microbes in it. I will die on that hill. I will say it over and over again that, the vegan cheese companies that call something cheese and they haven't done a culturing process. I disagree.
And if Dare was a person, what would their personality be?
Oh, just like I would say like a happy soccer mom or something like that. Just like so happy to feed you and make sure that you have snacks and that you're hydrated, and just I just want to take care of people and make sure that they're living well, and that they can get back out there on the field if they need to.
And speaking to that, taking care of people, your company, Dare, has donated many times Plants on Wheels. How important is it for you to give back?
Yeah, well, my company started by somebody, letting me use the kitchen to get off the ground. And so I think that it is very important to put that back out there because it always circles back, or you just feel good about it. Like either you don't need a return on doing something good. But when it comes to feeding people, like we are all about donating product to feed. We don't have a lot of money to give out, but we have good cheese, and that's what we can do. So we do it as much as we can.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. Sybil and I started Plants on Wheels like 3 years ago, and it's been a challenge since the beginning, but we continue on, regardless of the challenges.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're doing the same thing.
Yep. It's my path. I got to continue on.
And I guess what would be your message to the world?
Oh, one of our taglines is just spread good, which, it's a bit of a pun because we're cheese and you can spread it. But that is, I hope to, in any interaction that I have, and whether it's business or otherwise, like, just want to make sure that there's good energy coming out of me to meet the other person's energy in a way that is good. And it's a ripple effect in all things that we do. So that's my mission and message is, just spread good.
That's a beautiful message. Gwendolyn, thank you. I want to thank you so much for giving us your time to tell us about Dare, and for giving us the knowledge that you gave us about your company. I really greatly appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. So great.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead. What was that?
Just happy to connect with you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's perfect. And how can people that are going to watch the podcast, how could they most easily find your company?
So on our website, we have a find us map. So you can, if you're trying to look for us at a store near you, you can use that interactive map to find us. Like I said, one of my woes of the company is that we aren't in every store in the country. And so it's a little bit harder to find us in a store, but we can ship anywhere in the country. So you can place an order of all the cheeses you could want on our website and we could ship right to you.
Perfect. And what is your website?
It is www.darevegancheese.com.
Perfect. Gwendolyn, thank you so much for joining Plants on Wheels for the podcast. We greatly appreciate it again.
Thank you. Thank you so much.